Oh, wow. Here with us now from Capitol Hill, Republican Congressman from Texas and chair of the House Financial Services Committee, Representative Jeb Hensarling.
Hey, Jeb, where are we this morning?
Good morning.
Hey, where are we on down right now?
Well, I must admit I was disappointed in what I heard from last night. It sounds like the president called in congressional leaders to reiterate yet again he's not interested in negotiating. My mother-in-law has always said the least you can do is show up, and apparently right now the president isn't ready to show up and negotiate. Republicans, I think, as you know, put not one, not two, not three, but four different offers on the table. We're not through negotiating, but I think we're probably through negotiating with ourselves. You know, I'm hopeful that they will come to the table. We want to get together and talk about ideas to get this economy moving and to get us off the road to national bankruptcy.
Okay, so
in the meantime, if I could, though, we have offered legislation to ensure that our veterans get paid, that our national parks are open, that NIH continues to fund cancer treatments for children. White House has issued veto threats, and that's very disappointing, very disappointing.
So, what is the end game here in terms of negotiating? Do you expect
well, Mika, I'm not sure there's...
Do you expect him to negotiate on health care? Do you really think that he'll do that?
Well, here's what I think. You know, Democrats have been working on some form of nationalized health care, I think you could argue, since Harry Truman. Our party feels very strongly in patient-centered health care, so if they worked on it for 3 generations, don't expect us to be quiet and go along and get along and shut up after just 3 years. So we understand that this is the president's signature item. We've put several offers on the table, and the last offer is a simple one. If Obamacare is the law of the land, at least apply it equally to everybody. You know, don't give a hard deal to big business and labor unions that you don't give to average working Americans. And don't give some kind of sweetheart deal to Washington that you're not giving to their constituents. If Obamacare is good enough for working Americans, it ought to be good enough for the president, the vice president, the cabinet, and members of Congress. I mean, those are 2 very simple items that I would hope the president would agree to.
Yeah, and Jeb, those are pretty clear. And he has given exemption to so many corporations and so many other entities, including Congress.
1,100 at last count.
1,100. And so the 2 big items are those 2 items. I wonder if Republicans would accept it that, okay, maybe they don't get the 1-year exemption for everybody else, but at least they get rid of their own exemption, which I think is your most powerful argument. Don't exempt Congress from the very law that they passed. Would you think that might be enough for some Republican members if the president just got rid of the congressional exemption?
Well, again, as I said earlier, I think we're kind of through negotiating with ourselves.
Right.
If there are Democrats wanting to come and negotiate, I just think it's untenable in America. I mean, if there's one thing that upsets Americans, it's Washington elites passing laws that they themselves, the Washington elites, don't live under. But, Joe, I really think this is a bigger question. You know, we are in the slowest, most tepid, disappointing recovery of the modern era. 1.5% to 2% GDP, tens of millions unemployed, underemployed. I mean, we feel very strongly in talking to small business people in Dallas, Texas, East Texas that I represent. Obamacare is a huge part of that problem. If the president's not going to negotiate that, I understand it,
right.
But we've got to represent our constituents, and we see this and hear this every day.
Jeb, we've got a lot of people around the table.
Chairman,
let's move to Harold
Chairman
Ford.
Harold Ford, good morning.
Hey, Harold, good to talk to you again.
Good to see you. It's been reiterated. The election took place. The court declared it constitutional. Congress passed it. But put that aside for one moment. I know yesterday you met with some CEOs of some of the bigger banks in the country. They were expressing concern around the debt ceiling. What message did they deliver? I guess we can kind of surmise that. And more importantly, how did you react and try to ease some of their concerns?
Well, what's most important is House Republicans absolutely believe that default on our bonds, default on our debt is totally unacceptable. It hasn't happened in our history. Under our watch, it won't happen, and that's why House Republicans have passed H.R. 804, the Full Faith and Credit Act. Any of your listeners, watchers can go Google the thing, when what it says is that America will always pay its debt. It will pay the principal and interest on its bonds. But I got to tell you, my constituents in the 5th District of Texas do not equate payment on a bond with payment for the next Star Trek IRS video, travel payments for the Alabama Watermelon Queen, pottery classes in Morocco, and everything they're asked to pay for when they're struggling. And the bottom line is, we all know this is a nation going bankrupt. If we don't start today, we're going to leave the next generation with fewer opportunities, less freedom, and a lower standard of living. And everybody in Washington says, nah, wait till tomorrow. We've got the crisis of the moment. We can wait till tomorrow. Well, I got to tell you, not just as a congressman, but the father of a 10-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter, we can't wait till tomorrow to deal with this debt. There's no perfect time to do it. If you ignore the debt ceiling, it's a little bit like turning off the smoke alarm when the fire starts. No, you go deal with the fire. You don't clip the wires on the smoke alarm.
All right, Donnie Deutsch.
Congressman Donnie Deutsch, nice to see you. I'm going to put the power in your hands, and you get to be King Solomon here. Two choices. You can either leave Obamacare as it is, and as Harold pointed out, we all know ad nauseum from Supreme Court down through Congress, or let the debt ceiling not be raised. You have two choices. Basically, we go over we default, or you accept Obamacare. Right. Are you personally, you can make that call. Are you willing to default on our debt?
I don't know if I can make it any clearer. House Republicans have passed legislation to ensure there will never be default on an American bond on the full faith and credit of the United States. But that's very different from funding every single line item in the government. You know, when families can't make ends meet, it's a very different decision on whether or not you're not going to pay your monthly mortgage payment where you borrowed money and canceling the vacation to Las Vegas, which you can no longer afford. And when it comes to Obamacare, listen, I understand it. 95% of Obamacare is what we call mandatory spending. So only the president is going to be able to roll back Obamacare. He's rolled it back for 1,100 of his friends every single week or month. There's some kind of waiver. All we're asking for is equal treatment under the law.
Mike
Hey, Congressman, on the congressional exemption that you mentioned, Washington elites, the Affordable Care Act, didn't you have the chance to insert that amendment a couple of years ago when this bill was being debated? And if so, why didn't you do it then?
Well, I think it was, frankly, Republicans who tried to ensure that members of Congress were part of Obamacare. What we're saying is, if it's so good for members of Congress, why isn't it good enough for the rest of the White House and for other members of the executive branch? So, you know, it's not just Congress, but what we do decry is that we believe, without lawful authority, the Obama administration decides that members of Congress are going to be the only people in America to get the employer contribution in the individual pool. And that's not right, and it's what, again, drives so much cynicism about people in the heartland. You know, if that's going to be done, let's pass it as a law and not have the stroke of pen of the executive administration. If Obamacare is the law of land, applied equally to everybody. That's what House Republicans say.
Thank you, Jeb. We appreciate it.
Thank you.